Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the Impact Review for the 2nd of December 2021. And my gosh, Impact has fallen off as a show that virtually no one needs to watch. I don't know. Maybe they do 200,000 now, but I'm betting more towards 150. Anyway, uh, fallout from Turning Point is where we are. Jake something defeats Hikuleo with Chris Bay on the BTI show. BTI doesn't need to happen. Opening video recaps Turning Point's Cardona and Morrissey match. Jonah's debut, and he attacks Josh Alexander, as well as the main event, where Moose retains the Impact title. Matt Cardona comes into the ring to open the show. Cardona talks about coming close to defeating Morrissey, if not for Morrissey, who takes out the referee. Moose then gets involved. He said he wasn't complaining, but he's still focusing on the title, at which point Moose makes his way out because he's not happy with this. Moose talks about Cardona's achievements in life, but pointed out Cardona has never been able to be a top guy in the business. Moose then questions if Cardona really wanted to step up against him after what he did to Edwards at Turning Point. Moose then calls Cardona a mid-carder and suggested a name change to Mid-Cardona. And anyway, Cardona slaps the mic from Moose's hands, and then they brawl. Morrissey comes out, and Moose and Cardona manage to take him down. But after the distraction, Moose hits the lights out. He sits up for a second. Edwards runs down, makes the save. Moose then runs away before Cardona could land radio silence. Violent by Design cuts promo after the match at Turning Point, where he shows Rhino what happens when someone betrays them. Young says that tonight they take out Rich Swann and Willie Mack on the path to tag team titles. Backstage, Scott D'Amore and Cardona meet. D'Amore books Cardona and Edwards, Moose and Morrissey, and Cardona asked title shot, so D'Amore told him that he deserved it tonight. And then we go to Jordana Grace and Rachel Ellering walking up to D'Amore, asked to join the Ultimate X match. Tasha Steelz and Savannah Evans also want a spot in the match. D'Amore said that next week he'll announce the participants, but Evans and Ellering will wrestle for the first spot in the match. Why are they wrestling? This doesn't make sense. Chris Sabin defeats Matthew Reinhold with Deanna Purrazzo. Match comes after Reinhold makes the challenge. Match sees Sabin control early during a bunch of chain wrestling exchanges and a bunch of arm drags. Reinhold is able to cut him off, snaps his arm on the ropes, and later catches him with a forearm, sends Sabin at the floor. Back in the ring, Reinhold works over Sabin, but then keeps playing to the crowd and eventually gives Sabin time to recover and escape from the sleeper, stunning Reinhold over the ropes. Sabin then makes a comeback, takes down Reinhold with a couple of forearms and kicks and jumping tornado DDT. Sabin then prepares to end. Reinhold then comes in, at which point Purrazzo leaves the table, distracting Sabin, and sets him up for Reinhold to take him out. Sabin then comes able to recover a cradle shock for the win. On the floor, Mickie James runs out and brawls with Purrazzo, making sure she couldn't interfere. And then we go to Chelsea Green asking D'Amore for a spot in the first female Ultimate X match. And Alicia Edwards asks the same. He keeps repeating the announcement would be next week. Jai Vidala also asked for a match, but D'Amore only had a match available, and it's against Jonah. Jonah defeats Jai Vidala. Obviously a squash. Vidala gets early strikes, but Jonah, otherwise known as the former Bronson Reed, destroys a series of slams, ending top rope plancha for the pin. After the match, Jonah takes the mic, says that the wrestling industry is talking about him. He then said he'd take over Impact. He has an appearance at the New Japan San Jose show and is able to target Moose since he has the title. However, he first wanted to take out Alexander since everyone kept saying Alexander's the best wrestler. We then get a recap of Turning Point X Division match. Trey Miguel defeating Laredo Kid and Steve McLean. After the match, Gia Miller interviews Miguel about his win. Miguel then says that he really wants to pin McLean and shut his mouth, but then there's a double pin. McLean then kicks out, and Kid didn't. McLean then jumped Miguel, and they brawl, so they're going to have a match at some point. We get an installment of Brian Myers' class. Myers isn't at the venue, so VSK and Dice, otherwise known as Ziggy Dice, kept trying to talk to him. They wanted to substitute a substitute teacher since they'd lost a Turning Point. Tonight, they're facing Finjuice and hope to make amends with Myers. Backstage, Moose tells Morrissey that they need to get rid of Cardona. Morrissey said it wasn't any of his concern if Cardona went after Moose or not, but Moose argued that if Cardona is present, he can give him title shot. And then Morrissey brought up that Moose hasn't given him the title shot he already promised, but Moose convinced him to stay with him. Savannah Edwards with Tasha Steele, and Rachel Ellering with Jordana Grace. Winner of the match qualifies for the Women's Ultimate X. Match is a bit of a brawl, shoulder tackles early on, and this goes on. Evans gains some momentum, slamming Ellering a bunch, but can't keep her down for a 3 count. Ellering then goes for the comeback, but then she goes for the springboard leg drop. Evans then comes up and blocks the leg with her hands and cuts off Ellering. Evans then hits a big DDT, but Ellering kicks out yet again. Ellering and Evans trade strikes, and the former finally is able to take down Evans, follows up with some running kicks and a senton. Ellering then hits a discus forearm, but gets distracted with Steels and Grace, and then they're chasing each other around the ring. Ellering then takes out Steels, hits TKO on Evans, and picks up the win. Tennille Dashwood runs up and meets Madison Rayne with Caleb. They both tell her about the inspiration, and Dashwood is annoyed, and this isn't Australia anymore, is the hint. Both teams meet backstage, and turned out Dashwood was BFFs with Lee and McKay. Rayne isn't excited about this, and off we go. Rich Swann and Willie Mack defeat Violet by Design. Joe Doring and Diener with Eric Young. Gosh, what a flat match this is. So anyway, both teams have been racking up wins but come up against each other. Doring and Swann start the match off. Doring quickly takes control but is caught by Diener as he tags in. Swann and Mack regain control and hit a couple of double team moves. Swann then gets the first near fall of the match, and then Doring jumps in and takes out Mack. Violent Red Design cuts off Mack and works him over with in a couple of minutes. Doring does most of the work, and Diener comes in and assesses things, and Mack manages to land a desperation pop-up forearm on Diener and is able to tag in. Diener then makes the mistake of not tagging out, and Swann is able to take him down with a cutter and tries to follow with a Phoenix Splash, but Young distracts him. Mack jumps in and takes out Diener, setting him up with the F5 for the win. This show drags. It really does. After the match, Young and Doring jump Mack and Swann. They tease pile driving Swann, and Heath and Rhino come out, save. They brawl with Violent by Design, continuing the feud that doesn't end. Backstage, Hernandez asked Johnny Swinger about what happened at Wrestle House. He told him that if he'd indeed gotten married, he would have given him money. Desi Hit Squad and Lawrence D approach them, with the latter calling Riff Raff D and challenge Rahat Raji to a match next week. And then we go to the main event. Mercifully, Matt Cardona and Eddie Edwards defeat Moose and Morrissey. Cardona and Morrissey start off. Moose dodges away from Cardona. He and Edwards dominate, and Morrissey clears the ring. But once they get back in the ring, Morrissey cuts him off. Cardona distracts himself. After some minutes, Cardona escapes. Morrissey holds off, tags in Edwards, and he then has a good hot tag, but Morrissey pushes him off top rope and then goes all the way to the floor. Anyway, Moose and Morrissey now had Edwards cut off from his corner, so they work him over for another couple of minutes, and then good job of isolation. Cardona then comes off the apron. Edwards manages to escape them. Evidently, Cardona tags in, takes out Morrissey, and gets his hands on Moose. Hits a codebreaker and a running kick for a near fall. Everyone jumps in, finishes, kicks, punches, and Edwards takes out Morrissey with a dive. And Moose is alone in the ring with Cardona. Counter into the lights out, and the Uranagi with a roll up for the win for the world champion. Post-match, Morrissey turns on Moose, lays him out with a big boot, and the alliance is over, and so thankfully is the show. We'll be back with more right after this.